If you're in a physician family, you already know what day tomorrow is. July 1st, Medical New Year, the day when interns walk into the hospitals with new badges, the day residents matriculate across the country, the day that everything turns over. New rotations, new cities, new seasons of figuring out what this life is going to ask of your family next. And if you're the one standing at home while all of this is happening, I see you. And I'm really glad you found this podcast. Welcome back to Supporting Physician Spouses. I am your host, Kendra Harvey, and this is the podcast for the woman who is married to a physician and is doing her best to hold it all together while quietly wondering if there is more to this life than just getting through it. We talk about the real stuff here, the invisible labor, the loneliness that doesn't have a clean name, the gap between how your life looks and how it actually feels. And I do it because you deserve a space where somebody gets it without needing it explained. Today's episode feels like a real celebration. My guest is Hayley Harlock, founder of the Flipside Life and one of my people. She is married to a vascular surgeon. She's a mother of 3. She has a master's in social work, and she's someone who has been advocating for physician families for 7 years. She has done academic research at McMaster University. She teaches medical students, and she has been showing up for the physician family community in ways that are genuinely changing how medicine sees physician families. She is the real deal, and I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. Now, Hayley and I have been friends since before the pandemic, long before we ever stood in the same room. We have a lot of shared history and a lot of shared conviction about this community. And one very memorable project in the middle of a global pandemic with no budget, no roadmap, and 8 children between us. We are going to talk about all of it. The friendship, the work, why mentorship in the physician family world matters, and what it actually looks like to find your people when you are navigating this life. Let's get into it. For anyone who doesn't know you yet, Hayley, tell us a little bit about the Flipside Life and what you have built over the last several years.
Yeah. So the Flipside Life is the community that supports, connects, and advocates. Actually, advocate is a word, but I tend to use the word champions, physician families at all stages of training and practice. And that's really sort of the mantra of what the Flipside Life, or TFSL, has been since it was established in 2019. So that means some one-on-one work with physician partners and physicians sometimes as well, some group work that we do via Connect calls, some events. We've done a lot of fun events over the years, both in person and virtual, where, virtual doesn't sound fun, but we've had some fun virtual events. And then part of what TFSL really has evolved in for me has been a lot of advocacy, which is going back to my social work roots, which is something that I didn't realize how much I missed until I was doing it again.
Where did the name come from? Tell us the genesis story.
Yes.
That.
So when I was designing this app, I had, these ideas. I was working with a developer, and he said to me, he's like, we need a name because that's kind of important if, we're gonna have a logo and whatever. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I like? I don't know. Like, I didn't have a name. And so funny enough, I met for lunch with a social work colleague that I used to work with at the Hospital for Sick Children. And her and I worked together for many years, and we hadn't seen each other for many years, probably a decade had passed. And she was attending a conference nearby, about 20 minutes from my house. And she reached out and said, do you want to meet for lunch? I said, Eden, I would love to. So her and I met for lunch, and I was telling her about this idea. And while she's not a partner of a physician, she grew up in a physician family. Her dad was a physician, still is a physician. And so I was telling her this idea. She was cheerleading, this is amazing. I think you got to run with this. And I said, but I need a name. I said, I have this, I don't know what I'm going to call this. And she told me, she said, I'm going to stop you right there. And she said, the number of times you've said on the flip side, or something on the flip side of whatever I was sharing with her. And she said, I think you've got your name, my friend. And I was like, oh. And then I said, okay, so the Flipside Life. And then it became this whole sort of cheeky play on words about, and this truly, I truly mean this. It's like the flip side of the flip side of the white coat, the flip side of what people outside of medicine assume the life of a physician family is all about. And most of it is wrong, usually, right? We've experienced
99.9%.
right? And so that's where the name stuck. And then when I started doing the work, I shortened it to TFSL because I realized that the Flipside Life is sometimes a big mouthful. And if I'm really honest, I've thought over the years, Hayley, what did you do? Like maybe if you had just had a name that was like one word, it would be easier, but can't go back
It is what it
now.
is.
So yeah, but that's the
No.
story. So it was the flip side of what people assume our life is like. And I think it really does. It makes sense. And it's so much of, I think, the work that you and I and many others do is trying to break down some of those misconceptions about what life in medicine is really and truly about.
So everyone should know right now that I love Hayley and I love the Flipside Life. And I think what strikes me most about what you've created is that you were building community for this population before most people even recognized it as a population that was worth building for, which is actually how we found each other. Right. So do you remember how we first connected? Because I feel like it's one of those things that just happened. And then suddenly we were in each other's world.
Yeah. One of us slid into the other's DMs and we kind of just started talking there and then took it, I don't know, more into, I was going to say into real life, but I guess it was a lot of virtual first. And then
it was a whole lot of virtual, which I think is one of the great things about social media is that you really can start to build friendships that do develop into real friendships.
Right.
It was probably like 2018 when I started like my online presence talking about physician families. And I think we were both at about the same point. So I almost felt like the universe was putting us together in a way, like all of these things were starting to happen and momentum was gaining and we just happened to find each other and immediately just felt like kindred spirits.
Absolutely.
And then the pandemic hit. So let's talk a little bit about that because what Hayley did during COVID is something that deserves to be named out loud because you ran weekly evening connect calls for physician families for over 3 years, weekly?
Weekly. Before the pandemic, so you were a little ahead of me in terms of you were doing the work and we hadn't met yet. And I had an epiphany that my physician family was not that special, that we could have been the only people struggling where nobody, from the outside, we looked like everything was sparkly and we were doing fantastic. And probably 2018 into early 2019 was when we did the work, we were back on track. And that's when I really started thinking about, okay, it's not just us and our community really deserves support, deserves to have a community behind the community to keep each other going. But I wasn't quite sure yet how I was going to take this idea. And I hadn't found you yet. I hadn't found anyone on social media yet. And then we took our family at the end of December to New Zealand and then followed by a month in Australia. And we came back on February 1st. And just before we left, I had done a couple in-person events, very, very small events. And then I had made the decision the 6 weeks that we were away, I really was going to do nothing. And we were going to just have this family time that we had never had. We had 2 of our babies during residency. The third one was born for real on my husband's very first day as an attending. And we had never had protected family time. And we were on the other side of the world. So I just sort of let things lie while we were gone. Then we came back on February 1st. Now this is 2020. And I remember sort of thinking, oh my gosh, we homeschooled the kids for 6 weeks while we were away. We're going to get the kids back in school. I'm going to get us back on track. And then the pandemic hit. And I remember, like most people, that first week, just feeling really helpless. My husband was at work. We didn't know what was happening. Then he was home. He'd had an exposure quite early on. And I didn't really have much of a social media presence. And I just went online one day and on Instagram on stories. And I just said, for any partners of medical students or physicians, I will be on Zoom on Tuesday at, I think it was 2:00 in the afternoon and Thursday night at 9 p.m. And I thought, I don't know if anyone will show up. And people did, including yourself. And people showed up. And then more people showed up and people kept showing up. And that was such a beautiful but almost sad realization in a way that our community was craving connection. So those calls, they went on and on and on and on. And they still go on in a different way now. But the 2 years of the pandemic of 2020 and 2021, do you remember we had people from all over Canada, the United States. We even had someone from New Zealand join those calls, which was crazy because of the time difference. We've had people from the Philippines join. So it's been really global. And in meeting with people from different countries, from different provinces, different states, you recognize that there's this beautiful, I don't know, it's almost like an instant bond, right? Where people feel comfortable, they feel at ease, they feel like, oh my gosh, someone gets me finally, after feeling perhaps not understood for such a long time. And I think that's one of the most special attributes of our community of physician families.
I do remember those early calls, and I feel very fortunate to have attended many of those because they were totally unscripted.
Yeah.
They were just everybody giving together, and you would just leave. First of all, everybody should know Hayley is the master connector. She has an ability to connect with people at a level that is super human.
Well,
Like, not very many people have that gift. And you certainly
So
do.
kind.
Everybody that you talk to, I would watch you welcome people into these calls and really just create a community of absolute safety. So what you did at that time was just not only genius and very needed, but it was such a gift to everybody who participated.
You're very kind, but it was a gift to me too. It was like, you know, some days where maybe I was tired too, but I always felt or feel still energized when I, you know, press the end button at 10 o'clock. And our community is really special. And you're right. You and I both have, you know, big protective feelings towards our community. And I don't think either of us will ever lose that because it's just part of who we are. But my favorite would be where, you know, people would meet in real life and I would get a text and a photo and be like, hey, Hayley, look, we're hanging out in New York City together, you know, and there's something so special about our community. And I'm so grateful now. Like, don't you sit back now and go, even like 5, 6, 7 years ago, there were not that many accounts on social media directed at physician partners. There was not research. I mean, there was research being done, but it wasn't this, like, there's more of it now. People are talking about it. Post-grad programs are recognizing that, yes, partners do go on this journey. Partners have always gone on the journey, but the fact that now we're actually being acknowledged for the important role that we play in the lifespan or the life cycle of a physician, whether in training, and even into retirement. I think it's a really exciting time for our community. And it's something you and I talked about before. It's like much work has been done. However, there is still much work to do.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned research and the number of accounts that are growing.
Yeah.
We finally got to be in the same room.
We did.
3 years ago now at the American Conference on Physician Health. And I remember the first time I saw you in person thinking, you've been in my life for years. And it feels like we already knew each other. Like,
we did.
Even though we were seeing each other for the first time, it didn't feel like the first time. It was the strangest feeling. But let's talk. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I was just going to say for anyone listening. So we were going to this conference and we're like, well, let's share a room. And we had kind of like, it was almost like it's like a condo kind of, I think, right? And I think perhaps our husbands maybe thought we were a bit crazy, like not crazy, but like, oh, you're going to go share a room with somebody you don't actually know. And we had so much fun. And do you remember one day we left the conference was done and we walked back and we sat in those chairs in the little like sort of living room space and we talked for hours and hours and hours. So there's lots of bad things about the internet. But this here, Kendra, has been, you know, such a special part, little corner of the internet. And yeah, it is really special.
We were there because we both have an interest in research. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with a team at McMaster University. It was looking at the impact of medical training on residents, fellows, and wait for it, and partners. We did some qualitative research, some quantitative research, and guess what we found? That residency training does impact both the resident and the partners. And so I think it's super exciting. And then we also published a guidebook. And this one I'm really proud of because it's actually for medical education and healthcare leaders. And I think there's such a wealth of information. It's about, you know, having hard conversations, communication. And we know that communication is so important. And I think in medicine, both in training and in practice, lack of communication, or maybe not the best communication, has had such a huge impact both professionally and personally on physicians and physician families. So this is just some resources, right? And I think perhaps that's what our community has lacked is resources. So that's what's come out of these projects. And hopefully sometime this year, all 3 phases that will be published. So more to come on that, hopefully soon.
Yeah. I'm jumping chronologically all over the place.
Yes.
Because at the same time, kind of all of this was happening, we actually embarked on a crazy project together that was at the height of COVID.
Oh, that's chalked up in one of the craziest things I've ever had the audacity to think I could do, but continue.
Let me give people kind of the background on this. So COVID starts, March of 2020, the world stops, and Hayley has started these connect calls And I've been attending them, and
Yeah.
we've developed this friendship. And
Yeah.
by April, that friendship was pretty darn solid. And it was
Absolutely.
clear that things were not going to go back to normal anytime soon. And so somewhere in the middle of that,
Yeah.
we decided to host a virtual conference for physician spouses. And not only that, we were going to produce it in 2 months.
In 2 months with no budget. We didn't even know how to really work Zoom. Well, I remember actually on the day I pressed the button and you were speaking at this point. We were live in this virtual conference.
Yeah.
And I thought I had disconnected myself just because I had moved a screen or something like that and sat in sheer panic for about 10 minutes because I was like, it's going to be my turn to speak. What if I can't get back on? But yes, it was a great name because it really embodied what we were all about and what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
We called it the Better Together Project. We had at least a dozen speakers. Maybe because we had extra time on our hands, we thought we could do this. But
I think so.
also between us, we had 8 children at home during the height of the pandemic, stuff going on with our husbands at work. And we thought, well, I am so proud of us because we pulled that event off. We had over 150 people from all over Canada, United States, the UK, Australia. We had fantastic speakers and people were there for it. Do you remember when we finished and it was like, oh my gosh, like hallelujah. We just somehow miraculously pulled this off. And when we say pulled it off, that's not us patting ourselves on the back saying, ooh, we truly pulled off, I think, the impossible. And we did. You bring the right people together. You have a little bit of hope. You have a whole lot of conviction and commitment to doing something. And it worked. It worked.
Yeah. It's still one of my favorite memories of the pandemic because I wish I could even convey to people, like you and I were probably working 10-hour day. I mean, it was round the clock. In the middle of the night, we'd be having conversations. We'd be sending texts back and forth. But the fact that we did that so quickly.
Yes. Part of maybe why it was such a success for us was it gave us purpose at a time in the world where I think the world needed purpose. And it just came together. And we had never met. We had only known each other for not that long. And we just had faith and we were going to do it. Maybe we should do it again, Kendra. I don't know. We know so many different things. And we
do know a lot of different things. We will put that on the list of things, the things to do.
Yeah. Anyway, but it was good time. So to anyone who
was a highlight.
To anyone who thinks that they can't do something and it's a crazy idea, just do it.
And at the end, we never had shirts made, but we talked about, at least we didn't die.
I was just going to say that, right? We didn't die.
There wasn't anything terrible that happened out of this.
No,
we
everything.
met great people, developed amazing skills, got lots of exposure being on camera. And it was amazing.
It was. High five, friend. We did it.
I know. Good job.
Yeah, right?
But I do want to name something that's kind of maybe underneath the Better Together Project is we both feel deeply that our community deserves support and resources. And we both had experience firsthand. And I think that's I don't want to say unique because there's a lot of people who have experience. But when you've navigated something that's really hard and you're not able to find somebody who truly understands it, that changes you. And it changes the way that you show up for the people who come after you. What you do is a lot of mentorship. And I think that's why it matters so specifically in the physician family world. And it's what I do too, is mentor so many people who are coming behind that. So what would you say about mentorship and the role that it plays in helping usher physician families through this crazy journey of medicine?
I can't say enough about how essential I think mentorship is. And if you think about other sectors outside of medicine, right, that where mentorship in sports, right, you might have a mentor, you might in business. And it's come a long way in terms of physicians having mentors when they're starting practice. But as partners, we've never really had that. I don't even know that I knew it was missing from my life until I realized the impact of what mentorship can offer somebody. And over the last almost 7 years of the number of people that I've mentored or counseled, but then I've met people too that are further along in their journey. When you talk about mentorship and the idea of, especially when you're coming into medicine, I think it's an exciting time, right? You've gone through, now you've had a couple months since Match, people are excited, there's lots of change happening. Maybe you've left your entire support network in a different state or province, or maybe you've had to quit your own job, or maybe you've had to put your educational pursuits on hold where you were doing it and now you're moving. And wouldn't that be beautiful if everybody had the opportunity to be mentored by someone. So when you're starting this and you don't know what is coming your way because you don't have a mentor, you don't have anybody that you know that's in medicine a little bit ahead of you. And so I think that's something that I will continue in the advocacy work that I do to talk about, is that we do need more mentorship in the physician partner community.
I absolutely agree wholeheartedly. For so many of us in life in general, whether you're married to a physician or not, we are not meant to do this life alone. Not any of us.
No.
But especially women who are navigating this terrain of medical marriage. I mean, you named it, the moves, the missed milestone, the loneliness that doesn't quite have a clean name. That is a lot to carry by yourself. And I think what changes everything, and what I have seen change, is having someone who is just a little bit further down the road than you are. Not someone who necessarily has it all figured out, because I certainly don't have it all figured out. There's still a whole lot of life to live, but someone who is speaking to you from a different stage, someone who's been where you are and has found a way through and is willing to turn around and say, I see you. Yeah. And here is what I know. That is true mentorship.
You and I have had these conversations for years, but when I was really struggling and my relationship was really struggling, but from the outside looking in, everybody thought we had the charmed life. I didn't know any better. I didn't know that it was okay to not be okay. And I was trying to be, I guess, in hindsight, maybe like, I don't take on this noble cause of like, oh, he's doing so many important things, right? And I'm just going to keep carrying the heavy despite what it does to me. And I've talked about this a lot in recent years, of this idea of altruism runs very deep in physicians and then in physician partners as well. We have been conditioned to believe that because we are part of a physician family, because we have privilege in many different ways, that what we experience doesn't matter, or we should just smile and keep going. And I say, no, actually, it matters a lot. And two things can coexist. We can have an abundance of privilege, and we can all have our own struggles. We're human. Every single person has struggles at one point or another. And so I think that's the gift that we have to share with people coming through, and any opportunity that we have to do that. I feel that that's our responsibility to share. Maybe somebody's having trouble finding a mentor, but there's other places they can look, and you do such a great job of giving such actionable wisdom in your podcast episodes that I think is a real gift for our community.
Thank you. Both you and I, we are here because we struggled through it. We didn't have mentors. We had to learn things the hard way. Yeah. So we recognize that there's value in that.
I like to think of us, I'm going to crown us as fairy god sisters out here in the world. But now I realize sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe it's more fairy godmother when you realize that we've been at this for a while, Kendra.
Yeah, we have. And occasionally I will get asked, like, why are you still doing this? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't think I could not do it. And I think I get that same sense from you. It's like, once you're in it, you're in it. This is a commitment, and it's not just a hobby or something you're doing for fun, or it's like, no, this is a calling in a sense. It feels very, I don't know, just a part of who I am. And I know it is a part of who you are.
Well, and I think it's because medicine is always going to be part of our life. You even hear about when a physician spouse loses a partner, say, to death, or when a physician retires, and how much medicine is still part of their identity. I agree with you. I can't see myself not doing the work within our community. It's even changed along the way in the last 7 years. One thing that I didn't know that was possible was, I've been doing medical education now and teaching medical students. I didn't know 7 years ago that would even be a possibility, right? And so I think our journeys have evolved and will continue to evolve. And I think there will be a passing of the torch, and but it's something that I just feel so passionate about. And when we engage in these conversations, it excites me. And the work sometimes is, because it's emotional, there's emotional, I don't want to say emotional burden in doing this work, but there's an emotional component of it. And it does get tiring. Sometimes you do get tired, but then every time I feel maybe tired, it's not I'm quitting. It's talking to somebody else, another spouse, and all of a sudden I'm rejuvenated again. And I don't know if that's your experience as well.
Oh, every time. It's my favorite thing in the world to do, because it does fuel me. So maybe in that sense, it is a little bit selfish, but it gives me such energy to go out into my family, into my
Yes.
community. Like it
Yeah.
just gives me, it's the fuel of my life. Like I
Yeah.
just, again, can't imagine my life without this work in it because of the transformation I've seen it have for me and for my relationship, for my family, and for all of the people that I'm blessed to work with. To see the impact it's had on their lives is just, it's a gift.
Absolutely. That's a perfect word. It is a gift. You and I have both worked one-on-one with physician partners over the years and continue to do that. And when you have someone that you're working with have a breakthrough in something, and that it's almost like this pride you feel when you know the backstory and you know the struggles or the challenges that they've encountered and how they wanted to make it get better, and like your Instagram, like it gets better, but you have to do the work. And so I think it's also a gift to walk alongside other physician families who are doing the work, and then to see them come out on the other side it truly has been a privilege for me for the last 7 years.
Yep, me too. All right. What would you say to the woman who is listening right now who still hasn't found her people?
I would say, I promise you, your people are out there. You might have to do a little bit of work, right, to find them, because I promise you, when you find them, it'll be worth it. I think sometimes, you might find your people. Maybe it's someone listening to Kendra's podcast who, every Tuesday when a new episode drops, that's your people, right? That she's your person. So keep looking. I think if you are perhaps in a new city or somewhere that you are new to a community, think about where you could find. Sometimes it's like maybe you join a yoga class, or maybe if you have small children, you're meeting people at the park. But do not discount the online presence, because we're not always in the same geographical area, and the online part is huge. If you're ever feeling, down and out, like you really are just feeling stuck, Kendra and I are very visible. You can find us in a heartbeat. Send us a DM. We'll be happy to have a chat with you. And I mean that really, really sincerely, because it is hard to feel like you're alone. You just have to find us. And I don't know. I'm not sure if I answered that question, but
I think to someone who's in the early stages, medical school or residency, and then even to the women who are a little bit farther down the road, I know Hayley and I, we're actively looking for you. We want to make sure that you have the support and the resources that you need. And we want to show up for you the way that we wish someone would have shown up for us. And that is really how community works. That's the way it's always worked. We find each other, we hold the door open, we turn around and we say, there's room for you here. Welcome.
There's always room. We'll share our seat at the proverbial table, right? We'll
Absolutely.
over. There's room here on the chair. And I think the one thing though, when you are looking, and if it's in real life or like virtual, you're trying to reach out, I think there's also a real gift in being vulnerable, right? Sometimes that can be really helpful if you actually share, that, hey, I would love to meet a new friend who understands what I'm going through. And I say this a lot, but, community is found in our collective stories. And that's not just something I say. I actually really, really believe that. So when we take the time to share with each other, like, hey, Kendra, like, what's this been like for you? And then you feel seen. The person that you've reached out to feels seen because they've had a chance to share their story too. And so I think our stories are important. They matter. And when we share them with each other, that's where the connection and the community is built from.
Love that so much. Thank you, Hayley. I just want to say for anyone listening, this conversation, this is exactly what Hayley does. And this is exactly what I do. Hayley and I found each other because we were both looking for the same thing. We were looking for community. In the absence of a community we could find, we build communities. And that's what I want for every single woman in this space. You deserve people who get it. You deserve to stop explaining yourself. You deserve a community that knows what your life looks like without making you feel like you are too complicated or too ungrateful or too privileged. But go find your people that are looking for you too. Thank you so much for being here, Hayley, and for everything that you have built, for welcoming me into your community. And for every person that you've shown up for, thank you for being one of my people. I do not take that lightly.
Likewise, my friend. And thank you. I'm so proud of all the work you've done and the podcast. And, let's keep on keeping on, right?
Let's do. This is your time. Give us where people can find you, how they can join a Connect call, like all of the things.
So you can find me via the Flipside Life website, which is just theflipsidelife.com. You can find me on Instagram at hayley.harlock, my personal handle, or you can look for me at _@theflipsidelife on Instagram. You can send me an email at Hayley@theflipsidelife.com. If you Google my name, you'll find a way to connect with me. And I would love to connect with you if you're out there listening and you feel like you need a fairy god sister, whether you're early on in your physician partner journey or whether you're nearing the end, wherever you are, happy to meet you at that point. And I know Kendra is too. So please reach out. Don't hesitate. Don't be shy.
And Hayley is the real deal. I would not invite her here if I didn't think that she was. So thank you so much.
Shout out to our friends that we don't even know yet in the community who are embarking on this medical new year. If you are the partner or significant other of someone who is starting residency or fellowship this week, we're so excited for you. We're so proud of you and the journey that you're on. And it's not an easy one. And can I share something quickly about partners and orientations and stuff? So this is a big week of lots of orientations for residents and fellows incoming different programs. And something that I am so excited, I can't really share a lot of details in detail right now, but the university that I'm affiliated with, finally, we are doing partner orientation for all 3 sites of the university's PGME programs. And so this year, partners that are incoming are going to have a night of their own. There's going to be time to meet other partners, because this was something that in the research projects that I worked on, we heard this from people that participated, people that were in 5th year saying, I've never met anybody. It's like, why am I meeting people now? This would have been helpful 5 years ago. So we are taking these recommendations from these projects. And then the work that I do, you do, Kendra, like that we know, right, as physician partners, that we need community early on. So I'm super proud and super excited to be part of these partner orientations. So I hope that, as more of these things happen specifically for physician partners in med ed, I hope that we see that come, that I hope one day, I hope when you and I are tired and maybe are deciding that we're, passing off the baton, that some of these things will just be part of nobody will ever question, why didn't we do this before? Because it was always part of it. So anyway, so just a huge shout out to anyone, both physician partners and physicians, new physicians that are starting your postgrad training. Best of luck to you. And just know we're not alone. So find your people, reach out to us at any time, but best of luck to everyone who is embarking on this really exciting adventure.
Yes. And for everyone listening, please go follow Hayley and everything she's building over at the Flipside Life. You can, again, find her at theflipsidelife.com. And if today's conversation resonated with you, her community is a beautiful place and they will always have my heart. So thank you so much for being here, Hayley.
Thank you for having me, Kendra.
Find your people. It sounds simple, I know that, and in some ways it is. But if you have been doing this alone, finding people who understand the specific shape of your life without you ever having to explain it in every detail first can feel like looking for something you were not even sure exists. It does exist. Hayley and I are proof of that. We found each other in a little corner of the internet, engaged in something real before we ever shared a room, and have been showing up for this community ever since. Go follow Hayley over at the Flipside Life. The community is a beautiful place to land. And if today's conversation stirred something in you, I want you to know there is something waiting for you. It is called the Life After Survival Mode Guide. It is free, and it is written specifically for you. And it is not about gratitude or waiting for things to get easier. It is about recognizing that the patterns you built to survive were smart, and then understanding that they do not have to keep leading. You can grab it at the link in the show notes. Because you have worked too hard to build this life to spend one more day feeling disconnected from it. I will see you again next week. Happy Medical New Year, and take good care of yourselves.